Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to those in the room. Oh, let's try that again. Sorry, we've had slight technical issues tonight. For those online, I'm glad you've managed to join us and we've been able to let you in. Welcome, welcome all of you. Welcome those in the room. Welcome those online to the fourth of our Lent series, Our Land, Digging Deep in Search of Common Ground. And tonight, I'm really excited to welcome Dal Kular from Sheffield and also Anu Ranawana, who is a great friend of mine and of us here, having done some theology with us in the past. We bumped into each other in various places. And I think I just want to say about Dal that I read this book about a year ago, Wild Service, Why Nature Needs You. And I read it because I'd read Nick Hayes's Book of Trespass, which is a wonderful, beautiful book, a history of the British Isles, a history of enclosure, a history entangled in colonialism, but also a kind of memoir of trespassing on land and on waterways in the present. So it's a bit of a kind of a guide to walking and to finding fences that you can jump over and all those kind of exciting things. But Nick's book put me on to this one, which he's edited with John Moses. And in a collection of chapters written by all kinds of different people, 13 different chapters, there was one that stood out, and I'm going to embarrass her. Hopefully not. Dal's chapter on healing was immensely moving and profound and just connected with something really deep for me. And I think I just want to highlight one or two things just to give you a glimpse of why I sent an email to Dal saying, I don't know if you'd be up for this, but I'd really love you to be part of this Lent series. At one point, she describes herself as the rambliest rambler ever. And she says, sometimes I hardly get anywhere, sitting for hours on end, lying on my back, staring at clouds floating by. I become useless to capitalism, to the capitalism of nature as a place for adventure sports, as a commodity to be purchased, as a place to do instead of be. And so one of the attractions was that invitation to be in nature, to stop doing, to stop seeing nature as something to use and to use up. Another thing that sparked for me was that she, in her chapter, begins to tell the story of some of her ancestry in the partition of India and in the Punjab. And in poetic, beautiful ways, opens us up to some of the heartbreaking rending of nature by human power, and particularly the power of colonialism. And she names herself explicitly as a brown woman walking, being, feeling in nature. And she says towards the end of the chapter, nature loves my brown footsteps and nature loves black footsteps because they recognize them as fugitive and free, as surviving and thriving. And so for a church that continues to go on a journey of pursuing racial justice and ecological justice, but for a church community that also loves poetry, loves connection, wants to love our more than human kin in the world around us as much as loving our human kin. There was something in Dal's chapter that invited me into that sense of connection. that was clear-eyed about where those connections are ruptured in our world, but invited us to fall in love again with nature. And so that's why I invited her. That's why I'm delighted she said yes. And that's why I'm delighted to welcome her here tonight. Dal, it's all yours.
Thank you, Al. That was a beautiful introduction. Really appreciate that. So hello everyone, and everyone online. It's really special to be here with you all this evening and be part of the Common Ground series of talks at Hodge Hill Church. So again, a massive thank you to Al for inviting me to be part of this series and for all of you coming along. I'm especially happy to be here in Birmingham as it holds a special place in my heart. I feel a connection to this city through my late father, who started his journey in the UK here in Birmingham, arriving in May 1954 from the decimated rural Punjab in the aftermath of empire and partition as a hopeful 22-year-old young man with just £1 in his pocket and one word of English, hello, and with hopes and dreams for a better life. He lived in Handsworth and worked in the car factories. And Birmingham's also the home to my 91-year-old uncle and my 88-year-old auntie, who I've just been to visit. So I've had some really big hugs today. So I feel blessed to be here. Thank you, everyone. This talk is called Love Notes to Nature, and I'm going to be sharing some words, a tiny film, and then there's a little tiny treat at the end. It's not chocolate, I'm sorry about that, but it's a little treat. But I want to preface this talk by complicating the word nature. You are going to hear me using that word a lot. I'm using this word as a provocation and as a portal into a more nuanced discussion around land, earth, and interrelations. In many indigenous cultures, there is no word for nature, as they believe we are all part of this living ecosystem we call Earth and the atmosphere and skies around us, that we are all Earth, interconnected. There is no separation between us and what we may call nature. Some argue the idea of nature as something outside of ourselves, something out there that we visit or that we often have no access to, especially in this country, is part of a colonial construct that seeks to separate us from our true home. It is part of a construct that extracts us, we, from nature, separating the human and the natural world from the natural world. That makes it easier for corporations to extract from Earth, to steal land, to fence it off. They're not doing that to us. They're doing it to nature somewhere far away. No. If we are Earth, if we reclaim the word nature and say we are nature, we are Earth, they are doing this to all of us. Language matters. Inspired by Tiokasin Ghost Horse, a Lakota scholar and activist, I prefer the word earth. We are all earth, part of this same interconnected ecological system. So I'm using the word nature as a familiar and understandable word, as an opening to a deeper conversation. I want to also invite us all here tonight to keep in our hearts, minds, and souls all of our fellow kin, our Earth family who are experiencing horrific war, theft of their lands, murder and erasure of their people, of their culture, the ecological devastation of beautifully rich and diverse lands that they've nurtured and loved for millennia, not just for themselves, but for all of us too. For Earth, we are not separate. Gaza, Iran, Lebanon, Sudan, Congo, Cuba, and all the other places and people who don't make the news. Let's remember all the beautiful people, our kin who are being displaced. In just 2 weeks, 1 million people displaced in Lebanon. This is not part of something new. It's been going on for hundreds of years all over the world, predating European colonialism. The land here in England has been stolen, fenced off, enclosed since the 11th century. People forcibly removed from their lands. Perhaps a practice for European colonialism, empire, the transatlantic slave trade, and now USA-Israeli warmongers. We need to reckon with that deep history of England, perhaps share that with the far right, that there's a very good chance their English ancestors were forcibly removed and displaced from their lands by rich dictators and lords and royalty. How would that change the debate about who belongs here? With 92% of English land enclosed and fenced off from us, and 97% of rivers enclosed and fenced off from us, all of this in private or corporate ownership. The majority of us in this country are enclosed and captured within the environs we live, with the right to roam only 8% of the land and only 3% of the rivers in this country. As earth beings, we want our land back. So thank you. I'm going to read a poem from the chapter in Wild Service called Unhealings. I'm keeping the microphone close. I'm going to read a poem from the chapter in Wild Service, and it's called Unhealings. Cooped up in this little terraced house, in this industrial land, no escape, my cells become red brick and loneliness, corked to keep a world inside, stacked against the elements and human creatures outside. Bricks breathe, but their breath is too thick. Opening windows means inhaling the exhales of drills and diesel, all-night parties, screaming children, screaming parents, blaring televisions, cars, stereos booming, buzzings, vibrations, washing machines on high spin, invisible skunk fumes that tease nostrils, but fail to intoxicate me to elsewhere. 24 hours of the city's rhythm on repeat. The trees have been chopped down and the blue tits no longer call. Unhealing is searching for sticks by a river and hearing the words, "Get off my land. I'm going to get my husband to come down here and shoot you." True story. Unhealing is escaping the city to a campsite and being called a paki by the owner and being asked, "Tell me one single place which the British Empire did not make better than before." True story. Unhealing is a White Lives Matter banner brandished on top of Mamtor, Derbyshire. These unhealings jolt my soma, stir things I cannot remember, makes me want to turn and run. But where? I'm in nature, and nature loves me. They. Nature is not a white-only space to be owned, tamed, fenced, gamed. Get used to this little brown, postmenopausal Silver Street woman, because here I am again, searching for sticks at the river, again, camping my empire survivor arse under our stars on your campsite again, being held by the wind on Mamtor again and again. I refuse your refusals of me again and again, of refusing nature. I know that when I escape the city and reach the hills, the world feels possible again. My ancestors feel possible again. I feel possible again. We feel possible again. Okay, thank you. We're now going to watch a little film. Put my glasses back on. called Love Notes to Nature. And this is a really special little film. It was made in one day and edited in another day. I was approached by a filmmaker called Joanna Szuchomska, a wonderful Polish filmmaker based in Brighton. And she was given a challenge during Sheffield Documentary Film Festival to find somebody in Sheffield and make a film about them, edit it, and then it was screened on the following Saturday. And that's what we did. We had a wonderful day. We're really proud of the little film that we made. And it actually won. And you'll understand there's a slight joke in this when you see the film, me in my Batwing top. But it won the British Mountaineering Council Women in Adventure Best Film of 2026. So I'm very proud of that. Yeah, it's only 4 minutes long, by the way. So Can you understand why it won the prize for Best Woman in Adventure? The film 2026. That's how you adventure in a batwing top on an allotment. I'm just going to read a few little bits that I think relate to this film and the theme from the chapter from Wild Service. Nature helps me to step out of my city skin and become something otherwildly. As a brown woman, being, walking, feeling into these landscapes, I'm taking control of my body and my psyche on my terms, extracting myself from a society of extraction and exploitation, from the unhealings. I can drop the layers of societal constructs, labels, and forget my neurodivergence. It's no longer me that is too intense, too ill, too nuts, too brown, too woman, too clever, too mad. It's the overculture, a society that is so out of kilter that to fit into it, I have to deconstruct myself to such an extent that I become ill. I'm undiagnosing myself from all the labels psychiatry want to give me, and I'm giving them back as a diagnosis for society itself. Thank you, but no thank you. I'm not your diagnosis. I am wild, untamable, and free. This is healing. This is the kind of nature healing I want for all of us. The kind of healing that makes us useless to white supremacy, useless to systems of power and oppression. I want the kind of healing in nature that makes us question everything, to listen to the wisdom found in thin places, to discover the joy of walking barefoot on gritstone paths, to watch the Perseid showers dazzle the deep night, to snuggle down under an old oak tree and sleep, to laugh and cry with friends as we free ourselves over and over again. Through our navel fourth eyes, we can dream of all the connecting chords of who we are, ever have been, and are becoming. Knowing that if nature or earth is our original home, and we are nature, then we are already home. We always have been. Thank you. So you'll see on your chairs, there's a card and a pencil. And this is an invitation for us to create something beautiful and poetic together, which we'll read out at the end. But a little prompt inspired by the essay. I've been writing notes to nature, dear nature. I've been writing nature letters. I love that format, dear nature, ... and saying what I feel. So it's an invitation, whether you want to take it or not. I'm really going to encourage you to do so. I believe everybody can write and is divinely creative. To write the prompt, dear nature, ... And then to finish that off with a sentence or even a word. So something like, dear nature, I would love to spend more time with you. Or dear nature, I feel really sad about what's happening to the earth. Or maybe something, dear nature, I love that owl that hoots at night outside my window. Or I love snow in March. Who loves snow in March? So you've got from now, and you're going to have some small group discussions. I will tell you more about that. So by the time we come back from that, if you've got some words on a card, if you want to leave them on the lectern, I called it a podium earlier. Sorry, I'm very sorry. We'll weave or your responses together. Okay, thank you very much.
Dal, thank you so much. Before we go into groups to share something of what's stirring for us and have a chance to write our little love notes to nature, I'd love to invite Anu, if you're up for it, to come up and just share a few stirrings for you. What connections are sparking from what we've heard and seen from Dal, from the perspective of a theologian in our midst, helping us make some theological connections as well.
Thank you, Al. Can you hear me? I'll move this up closer. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me now? There we go. I have a oddly soft voice. It's so good to be here. I feel like this has been a pilgrimage I've been delaying, but now I'm here, so it's very, very happy to be here. Thank you, Al, for always inviting me to do things. And Dal, thank you so much. That was absolutely beautiful. And I'm slightly resentful to have to stand here and talk to you because I want to go and sit in the corner and think about everything you said and dwell in it. I'm not that resentful, really, but I'm just going to share just some of the things that were popping into my head and just questions and sort of jumping off points as you were speaking and sort of drawing us into these questions of healing. One of the things that I really appreciated is how close some of the questions you raised are close to the questions that are being not just provoked, but demanded by Indigenous theologians who are speaking, writing, expressing creatively, looking at all forms of theology, even liberative theology, and saying we need to make so much of this a little messy. We need to become more comfortable with messiness, because it is in that sort of messiness that the creator is. And it is in that messiness that creation thrives. And Dal talked about the kind of colonial or imperial urge to tame, to control, to mitigate, to mute, right? To say that that thing which we are feeling is wrong. Let's find the right emotion. Let's even find the right way of worship. Let's find the right way of doing something. And I think that that's really what the push to become comfortable with struggle, to become comfortable with mess, to take that step of a critical embrace with creation. So I'll use the word creation, the theological word, because I also struggle with nature. I think it creates binaries. What happens to us as persons of faith when we are transformed by that encounter? And I think that's just putting your words into a theological question. What happens in that moment of encounter? What happens to us? Because in this moment, and I know Hodge Hill is doing vastly amazing work, but let's talk about other other places. Because we don't allow that to happen, it's also broken that relationship with the divine, with the creator, with the parent, if you will, right? There's something that's radically broken. And I loved the fact that Dal talked about refusal. Indigenous scholarship, not only theological scholarship, but Indigenous thinkers and activists have long been writing about refusal as a generative thing, something that creates life rather than breaks it down, right? What happens when we take a stance that is not the one that's expected. Sophie Chirongoma, who is a Zimbabwean theologian and who's been working with, she's been sort of documenting the activism of Shona women. She has this fantastic anecdote of the Shona women have been working and tilling the land and have this very interconnected relationship with the land. And when a lawyer from a big multi-corporation came to say, you know, we're setting out these boundaries where we're going to be picking up this land and turning it into something else, and you need to get a lawyer, one of the ladies responded, the soil is my lawyer, which I thought was quite a perfect thing to say. And it just made me think of what you said there. Another thing to think about, I think, is I think all our hearts are heavy with what's happening in Lebanon, what's happening in Iran, what's been happening in Gaza, what's happening in Congo, Sudan, as we see the destruction of all forms of life, not just human, but in the Arab Gulf, we have the dugongs the sea cows, who have been, I think, protecting seagrass for centuries, maybe. And that's now a species that's at risk. The gazelles on Kark Island. An Iranian poet was writing the other day about the silence of the birds. And at this time, at Eid's time, often you hear the birds more loudly, but the birds are silent. And there's oil on the jasmine trees. And for me, this is all strong theological language. So how do we reflect on things like that, this silence? I'll stop soon. I'm sorry. And in that, how do we make space for multi-generational life and multiple ways of thinking about something and doing something, right? How do we immerse ourselves in the spirituality of creation? I think these are ways in which we're looking to healing. We're doing that work of refusal. That's so important. But these are just a few things off the top of my head, probably quite half-baked, but thank you so much, Dal. That was good.
Thank you. This has been a rich feast of thinking and heart connecting and body stirring, and inviting to lament and to love. And I think I feel like I need to take a breath for a moment. So I'm going to invite us just to take a minute to just breathe, to let sink in what we've heard. And then after that, let's take 10 minutes or so to have a chat in small groups in the room, in a breakout room or two online, to share something of what's stirring for us. And again, it might be heady, it might be heartfelt, it might be something stirring in our body that has been moved by what we've heard. So, time to take a breath, and then let's do a bit of sharing of what's stirring for us. And as we do, if we want to take time to write a little love note to nature, to earth, then let's do that. It may be that some of what's stirring for us we want to put into words on the cards, and let's gather those together, and Dal's going to create something by the end as well, which is exciting too. Time to breathe, and then to